Hello everyone, welcome to the Archipelago live stream. I'm Liam, one of the preset developers here at Archipelago, makers of Lightroom presets and creative profiles. So today we're taking a look at Light and Legacy. This is our Filmic preset collection, launched as part of our brand new core preset collection a few weeks ago. So we're taking a look at this set today, kind of walking through what's included, taking a look at the tool set, all that kind of good stuff. So it's part of our brand new core preset lineup. Like I said, it's the Filmic preset collection. It sits alongside our other three collections, which is True Color, Moody, and Earthy. So last week I did a live stream showcasing the Earthy preset collection. That's called Light and Ochre. The week before that I did the live stream showcasing the True Color preset collection called Light and Truth. And today we're all about Filmic. So we're taking a look at Light and Legacy in this live stream. Thanks so much for joining. If you are tuning live, do jump in the chat and say hello. We'll of course be doing a giveaway as we always do. So if you are tuned into this live, just hit the subscribe button on the channel, give the video a like, jump in the chat, say hello, and keep interacting in that chat box as we go through the stream. We'll be choosing some people from the chat to win a free t-shirt. I'll show you that right now. That's the new Archipelago t-shirt featuring our brand new logo. Just as a thank you for tuning in live and taking the time out of your day. I can see that Sarah's on. We've got Anna on. Faldiala. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that correct, but welcome. Thanks for joining. Tuning in from South Africa. That's awesome. Thank you so much. So like I said, Light and Legacy is a Filmic preset collection. It's really, really gorgeous in terms of the tonality that it offers. I myself am a hybrid shooter. I shoot both digital and film. So it's a set that really appeals to me. And I think a lot of people really like that Filmic look, even if they only shoot digital. And that's really what this set is all about delivering. As with all our brand new sets, this set comes with desktop presets, comes with mobile compatible presets as well, a dedicated tool set, and of course creative profiles. So there's lots packed into those new core preset collections. So I'll be showcasing the desktop presets and that dedicated tool set in the live stream today, kind of walking through how to use them, how to get the most out of them, showing a variety of different scenarios. I've got 8 wonderful images to show a nice variety of different scenes. Vernon's on, tuning in from Cape Town. That's exciting. Thank you so much. Courtney's on, excited to finally catch a live stream. Welcome, Courtney. Thanks for joining. Anna said, I have to prepare for a hurricane after this. That sounds interesting. Hope that's not too bad. Make sure you stay safe. Nina's tuned in from North Germany. Welcome, Nina. Thank you. All right, so let me switch over to my editing screen. I'm just going to show the 8 images that I've got to edit with in this live stream. So nice variety. We've got some indoor shots, just some different sort of scenes, just to kind of showcase how to use the presets across different scenarios and obviously different camera manufacturers, that kind of thing. So as I get into the editing portion of this, you're going to see the photographer's name and their Instagram handle at the top left of each of the images. So this first image here is from Casey, and you can see the Instagram handle at the top there, along with the EXIF data for each particular image as well. So do go and give them some love. If you like their images, go and check out their Instagram and give them some love. We absolutely adore the images that we get to edit on these live streams, and it's a thank you to the photographers that submit these images through to us. Always a pleasure to edit. All right, so let's take a look at the actual presets then. So we have Light and Legacy. Obviously, like I said, each of those new sets come with a core base preset collection and also a dedicated tool set as well. So you can see here we have the Light and Legacy set and then the Light and Legacy tool set below that as well. Thank you for the new subscriber. Do jump in the chat and say hello. Great to have you here. So again, these are the 8 images that I'll be editing with today. Do ask questions if you have them. I'll try and answer those as we go through this stream. So if you have questions about this particular set or, you know, editing in Lightroom, anything like that, if it's something I can answer on the live stream, I will try and do that. Erin's on. Hi AP team and all. Welcome, Erin. Thanks for joining. Okay, so let's dive into this first image then. So again, this image is by Casey. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring the exposure up on this one. a good amount, maybe around about there. White balance is looking good to me, so I'm happy with that. So we'll go ahead and take a look at each of the presets that are included with this. So we'll start with Light and Legacy 1. And you can see you get that really, really gorgeous transformation. You will also notice with this particular image, lens correction is also applied as I apply the preset. And there's a background mask and a subject mask that are both applied when you actually apply the base preset there as well. So again, before and after with Light and Legacy 1. Let's run through all of the presets just so you can kind of see all of them side by side. So Light and Legacy 2. So not a massive difference on this particular image. You will see a bigger difference on other images. It just depends on what's included. But Light and Legacy 2 is a little bit softer. The greens are rendered slightly differently. There's not as much contrast in that one as well. Then we have Light and Legacy 3. So you can see it's a little bit cooler, a little bit more punchy, and slightly brighter as well. Light and Legacy 4, a little bit more again, contrasty, but slightly darker, a little bit more moody. But still with that nice filmic clean edge. And then we have Light and Legacy 5, so a little bit more of a green toning to this one, slightly cooler, again quite punchy, but a little bit softer than Light and Legacy 4. And then we have the black and white, which is Light and Legacy 6. One of my favorite black and whites. It's gone right to the top of the list of my favorite black and whites. Just really, really nice, classic filmic black and white, punchy, and it has that really nice grain texture to it there as well. So I'll go ahead and edit this one with Light and Legacy 1. We can take a look at the other things that are included with this, like the creative profiles and the tools. So the creative profile for this set is called Light and Legacy. It's set to 100 as default. If I go ahead and bring this to the left and then to the right, you can see how it's just adapting the contrast in the image, and it's also changing how the greens render as well. So if I bring it down to 0, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on the image. Let's go into here. You can see that lovely grain texture coming through that's included with the base preset. So this is it down at 0. So this is a little bit softer. It has a little bit less contrast, and the greens are rendered more warm toned. And if we go ahead and increase this, you can see it just gives a little bit more of a contrasty look. It kind of punches the whites up, brings the blacks down a little bit, shifts slightly cooler, and you can also see those greens shift from being this kind of warm natural green to being more of a filmic teal green. So slightly desaturated and more teal toned. Really, really nice. Again, with the creative profile, the difference between it down at 0 and up at 200 will be more dramatic on other images. So you'll see as I go through the rest of the images, that difference is a little bit more dramatic. But I'm going to leave it at 100, I think, for this one. Let's go ahead and take a look at the tool set. So the included tool set, there's quite a lot of tools with this particular one. Again, they're all geared up for filmic editing. So if we start from the very top, we have black burn. So with the filmic editing, you often get kind of a softer look to the blacks and the shadows in your image. And that's because of the dynamic range of film. So mimicking that dynamic range, it kind of lifts those up and you get this kind of soft look to the blacks in the image. If I go ahead and hover over black burn, what you'll see, it just kind of brings the blacks to being more punchy, some more crisp. So again, without and with. So if you want to bring that element back, kind of go back to more of a kind of a clean, slightly more leaning towards the digital look, you can do that with black burn. You can just bring those blacks back into the image. Really, really handy if your image is lacking in contrast or you want to add a little bit more punch to the darker areas of your image. Once you apply one of these tools, you have the preset amount slider that's up at the top left of the preset panel here, and you can dial that in. So bring it down to 0, bring it all the way up to 200. You can see exactly what it's doing to the darker areas of the image. So for this, I'm just going to do a little bit of that. So maybe down to about 52. Now in this particular image, we don't really have a sky visible. Obviously there's a building behind the couple here, but the next preset is called Sky Recover. And this is just, again, designed to mimic that dynamic range that you get with film, where the sky tends to have a lot of detail in it still. So it kind of brings the exposure down of the sky, kind of softens it up. So it's still quite soft and blends with the image really well, but it brings the exposure down a little bit. So you get that kind of same type of effect where film can handle a really, really wide latitude. So this helps to kind of mimic that in digital photography. So I'll show that on another image where we've actually got a sky in the photo. I'm going to zoom back into the bokeh here because the next preset we have, the next tool, sorry, is called Green Foliage Minus. And this one is simply a way of reducing the greens in the image. So if you find that the greens are too punchy and you want to bring that saturation down, Green Foliage Minus will do that. So again, down at 0 and up at 200. Hard to see because we've only got the greens in the bokeh here, but again, I'll show you that on another image. But just a nice way to control the greens if you have those kind of very neon looking greens, very saturated, and you wanted to dial them back just a little bit, you can do that with Green Foliage Minus. Next up, we have saturation depth. So this is a way of just adding saturation back into the image. So if I go ahead and zoom back in, if we take a look at the tool with it on, so you can see the blues are much richer there. Again, the colors in the bokeh pop out a little bit more. So if I go ahead and click that, bring it down to 0, up to 200, so you can just bring more color back into the image. And I think for this, it looks really nice. So I'm going to add a little bit more saturation. I'm going to bring it up to about 75, just to bring some of the blues back there and also enhance the colors in the flowers. The next two tools are both exposure +1 tools. We have pastel pink and pastel yellow. And what these essentially do is they're an overlay that apply a color tone and also boost the midtones by a stop. So if I go ahead and show pastel pink exposure +1 first, again, bring it down to 0 and then up to 200, you can see it brings in that really nice pink toning and boosts those midtones and gives an extra exposure of light. So you can either just have it boosting that exposure, or you can increase that and then just back off your actual exposure over here if you want to kind of balance things out. And this is a tool that I absolutely adore. It looks so nice, really, really filmic. So this is the pink version. If I set that back to 100, then we also have the pastel yellow version. So this is it down at 0 and up at 200. So again, same thing, but it's just bringing in a nice pastel yellow overtone and also boosting those midtones, again, giving that extra exposure, extra stop of exposure. So I think for this, that pastel yellow, I'm going to bring it up quite high, maybe about 150. I really, really love the way this renders. It's one of my favorite tools. I've been using this with all of our other preset collections as well. It just adds a really, really nice finishing touch to the images. Let's have a quick look at the chat. I just realized I've not had a look at the chat for a while. So what we're saying. I like that black and white are true to color, hardly a color shift. Thank you. What film stock is this set emulation? So it's a bunch of different film stocks. So it kind of emulates some of the more popular film stocks. But yeah, each preset will emulate a slightly different film stock. Preset 1 and 2, so LNL1 and LNL2 are based on the same stock, but just with a slightly different rendering. And then 3, 4, and 5 are all unique. And of course, 6 being the black and white is unique as well. So they're not after a specific, like each preset is not, this one's Kodak Portra 400, for instance. They're designed to emulate a certain look, but not necessarily one specific film stock, but they are based off some of the most popular film stocks from obviously across the years. My favorite film stock, Fujifilm 400. Is this film stock emulated after Fujifilm 400H? So again, like I said, it's not a specific film stock, but you can definitely get the Fujifilm 400H look. So especially 1 and 2, the way that it renders the greens, and then if you use it in combination with either the pastel pink or the pastel yellow, that can definitely give you that really nice 400H look. You would usually find with 400H, it does have a little bit more of a magenta overtone. So that pink, that pastel pink exposure +1 can really push that. And then along with the greens that are getting rendered by the creative profile, you can really get that 400H look. Or for instance, if you want to go for more of a Kodak Portra 400 look, you could bring the profile all the way down, so you get that more natural toning in the greens rather than the teal toning. And then you get that kind of more Kodak Portra look, so a little bit warmer. And again, if you were to use something like pastel yellow exposure +1, but not boost it super high, you bring in a little bit more of the golden overtone that Portra's known for. So yeah, like I say, not based on specific stocks, but the overall look, you can achieve lots of those popular film stock looks. Kate said, just love the pastel tools. I've started using them a lot. Yeah, I'm literally using them on absolutely everything, especially pastel yellow. That one's going on absolutely everything. That pastel pink makes the background look creamy. Thank you, Vernon. This pastel pink is so filmic, totally in love. Thank you, Lucilla. can't possibly favor even more AP tools, but pastel pink and yellow in my Florida weddings is worth the set to, yeah, take my money. Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, if those two tools were just the only reason to get the set, it would be worth it, because I have literally used them on absolutely everything. I've actually used them on some of my own film shots as well. So I do actually use a couple of different tools when I'm editing film scans that have come back from the lab. I actually used to scan my own film. I don't do that anymore just for time benefit. But I used to scan my own film and used our tools there. But now I just use the lab scans, and then I use some of our tools, including the overtone tools in here, just to kind of finish an image off. The black burn can also be quite handy for film scans as well, because sometimes you get scans back and they're quite flat and they're lacking in the blacks, and that can be one click sort of fix. Click on that, set the amount you want, and you can get those blacks back, which is quite nice. I love the pastel pink. Delmar has me hooked on pinks and pastels. When I preview this preset, the Lightroom shows huge grain. How to fix it? The final image grain is much more subtle. So the chances are with that, it's just taking a second or so to render. So with the grain in this particular set, the grain's being applied in the masking panel in here. So you can see here it says film grain. So it's being applied in the masking panel. And we've talked about this on the live stream before. The reason that we use the masking panel for some of our sets to create the film grain is the grain is that the grain structure when applied through the masking panel is different to the grain structure in the effects panel. So you apply the same settings in both and you actually get a little bit of a different look. And especially for a filmic set, the grain in the masking panel is much more accurate to film. It has much more of a filmic-like texture. So that's why we use the masking panel. So yeah, sometimes it might render where the grain is like super heavy or large for like a second or so when you first look at the image. But obviously once it's kind of caught up, if your computer's a little bit slow, it might take a little bit longer. But once it's caught up, the grain will render the way it is here. So you might see that when I kind of go to an image, but it is only for a split second usually, and that's because we're using it in the masking panel there. If that really bothered you, simply turn the grain off and apply grain in the effects panel. But yeah, that's the only reason that it's doing that. Vernon said, Blackburn will definitely look good on my film scans. Can't wait to try it on my scans. All right, so let's take a look at the rest of the tools then. So next up we have Subject Shadows Plus. So this is just a nice quick way of lifting the shadows on your subject. So if I go ahead and hover over this, we don't need it on this image, but you can see it does a nice job there of lifting those shadows up on your subject. And then we have the same again for the background. So Background Shadows Plus, again, just lifting the shadows up in the background of the image. So just a nice quick way to kind of adjust the dynamics of your image, setting the shadow depth for both the subject and the background separately. Background diffusion, another favorite of mine. Again, this isn't a great image to show this particular one on, so I'll show this on another image. But this just softens up that background, gives it the look of diffusion, so like using a diffusion filter, but it only applies it to the background. So you get this really nice separation between the subject and the background, and it also really leans towards that filmic look. You do get diffusion, even when you're not using a diffusion filter, you do get diffusion when you're shooting film. It's why it has that really nice soft look, and then obviously the grain brings some texture back. So that can help to sell that look as well. If you've got a bright sky or something, it kind of creates this really nice glow in the background of your images. Again, I'll show that on another image shortly. Then we have Film Scanner D&S, that stands for dust and scratches. So this is just a way of adding dust and scratch effect onto your images. So if you want to, again, emulate that look of film and kind of go a little bit further, this will add in, if I go ahead and zoom in on this image for you, you can see here we have these little scratches and little marks of dust around the image. And again, it's hard to see because we've got quite a bright background here, but you can see some down here as well. Just really, really nice way of adding that extra little touch that looks obviously very filmic, and you can adjust the amount with the preset amount slider at the top there. And then we have some grain tools. So these are just a nice quick way of adjusting the grain intensity on the image. So there is a default grain amount that's just called film grain. So you'll see that in here, film grain. That's a default amount that's set with the presets when you apply them. But then we have some that mimic the different mediums. So we have 35mm film grain, and we also have 120 or medium format film grain. And then we have different ISOs or ASAs. So we have ISO 100, ISO 800, and ISO 3200. And then in the medium format, we have ISO 100 and ISO 400. So if I show those, it might be hard to see on the stream, but I'm going to go ahead and zoom right in on the image just so you can kind of see the grain structure here. So 35mm film grain, ISO 100. So 35mm film is obviously full frame, what we would call full frame in digital. So it's a 35mm frame. So the grain tends to be larger than medium format, the medium format has a larger negative, which means the grain appears smaller. So this is ISO 100, which has a low amount of grain, but it's 35mm, which means the grain appears slightly larger. And then if we take a look at ISO 800, so you can see the grain is more intense. Again, the size is slightly larger because it's 35mm, but with ISO 800, you get more grain on your film stock. And then we have ISO 3200, which gives a really heavy textured grain on the image. And again, 35mm, so it's a little bit larger. Now, if we take a look at the 120 medium format film grain, this is ISO 100. You can see it's really, really fine. So very, very small and fine grain. And obviously with ISO 100, it's a low amount or low intensity. And then we have ISO 400, which is more intense, but again, smaller grain size because of the medium format. So you've got lots of different options there in terms of the grain texture. I'm someone that loves to have grain on my digital images. So having this amount of option is fantastic. And of course, if you want, you can do the next option, which is grain off, to switch the grain off entirely. So yeah, if you're not a fan of grain or you don't want to have it on a certain batch of images, you can use grain off to deactivate the grain entirely. And then the last tool we have is called lens correction off. I'm just going to turn the grain off for a second. Lens correction off simply deactivates the lens correction that's built into the presets. So if you don't want to have that on, if you want to keep the natural vignette and distortion from the lens, you can deactivate that. But having the lens correction on, if your camera doesn't set it automatically in the file, having that on can help to give a cleaner look and leans into that filmic look as well. So that's the tool set, that's the core preset collection. So this one is edited with Light and Legacy 1. This is before and this is after, and we've used a few tools in there as well. I'll show you the side by side and I'll have a quick look at the chat. What we're saying. That's really good to know with the grain in the masking tool. Thanks, Liam. No worries, Gary. I accidentally use pink and yellow pastel tools on my black and white. Yes, if you do that, you can get a really nice result if you want to have that. You're obviously going to find if you use it on a black and white, you're going to inject a color overtone to your black and white. So if you want to have that, if you want to shift your black and white to have a color overtone, you can do that, but they are initially designed for the color preset. So just keep that in mind. Liam, I would like to see grain and scratch preset amount pushed way up. All right. Let's do that. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this image. So a nice way of adjusting something that you've already applied is simply to reapply it. And then you can use the preset amount slider at the top left once it's reapplied. So I'll reapply that and then I can crank that all the way up. So if I do that, let's go back to this view. I'll zoom out a little bit. So there you go. You can see some of the dust and the scratches across the image. You've got kind of these little areas here. If I go down to the bottom where it's a little bit darker, you can see that more intense. So you can go for a little bit more of a kind of gritty look by increasing that all the way up to 200. I generally find that having it a little bit more subtle, although it's maybe hard to see initially, it does have a little bit more of a realistic look because generally, if the lab is good and the scans are good, the dust and scratches are quite minimal on the image. So I tend to find having it set a little bit lower. So maybe bringing it down to say like 54, so you can just about see it. That looks a little bit more realistic to what you would expect to see from film scans. I'm going to go ahead and apply medium format film grain ISO 100 just for that little bit of texture in the background, but still a very clean look. So again, I'll show you that side by side just up close so you can see how it's rendering the skin tones on the subject. Really, really nice. Again, those flowers with the greens, very, very filmic. And again, the creative profile is going to allow you to dial that. Courtney said, wow, very nice edit. Looks so clean and crisp. The 85mm lens compression is beautiful with separation from the background. Absolutely. Love an 85mm lens. All right, so let's move on to the next image so we can kind of see these in a different scenario. So I'm going to go ahead and set the exposure and white balance. I'm going to bring the temperature up a good amount on this one. about there. Bring the exposure up just a little bit, and then let's take a look at Light and Legacy 2 on this one. Super nice. So again, I'll show you this is before and this is after. Really, really nice result, and that looks super filmic to me. I might bring the exposure down just a little bit. That looks great to me. So again, really, really nice results with just the one click. Super, super realistic looking filmic results. If I go ahead and zoom in, so you can see that nice grain that we've got there, the way it's rendering the skin tones. So let's take a look at the tools and see if we want to use any of those. Let's go creative profile first, actually. So I'll bring that down to 0 up to 200. So on this one, you can see a little bit more of the difference in the way that it's rendering the contrast levels. So you can see it's just a slightly cooler look, a little bit more contrasty. And if there were more greens in this image, you'd see how the greens shift there as well. Now for this, I'm actually going to go the other way. So I'm going to go for the profile all the way down to 0. Don't think we need to use Blackburn, Sky Recover. Let's go for pastel yellow exposure +1. So I'm just going to go for a little bit of that pastel yellow look. So kind of going more for a Kodak look, which tends to be a little bit warmer. And I think for this, I'm going to go for medium format grain at ISO 400. And for this, let's actually go ahead and show you one of the borders from the borders toolset. So we also have some new toolsets available on archipelagopresets.com. Including the borders toolset. And what the borders toolset does is it brings together a bunch of borders that we've released across various different Quest and Archipelago sets across the years. We kind of picked our favorites and brought them together into sort of a master pack of borders. So we have the borders toolset here, and it does include quite a few filmic borders in this, so it's quite apt for this live stream. So we've got some 35mm and 120 and also 4x5 borders in here. So let's go ahead and use one of the 35mm borders. I'm going to go for 35mm border V, which is for a vertical image. And this is going to give us that really nice 35mm look. So we have these borders on the sides, we have the sprocket holes, we have a little bit of a light leak, and this also applies its own dust and scratches to the image as well. And again, all that's happening in the masking panel of Lightroom. So one click and you get this really, really dramatic effect, and all that's being applied with various different layers in the masking panel. So that's the 35mm border. It's part of the Filmic range in the borders toolset that's available on archipelagopresets.com. So that can look super cool, and let's mix it with something else. If we come down to one of the Quest toolsets, we have Quest Tools 08 XF Light Leaks. So this set is available to purchase in the Quest archive, and this features a bunch of different light leak effects that you can apply to your images, again using the masking panel. So let's go for let's have a look at Light Leak 5. I'll give this a second to render because we've got quite a lot going on. Yes, go for Light Leak 5, which applies this nice blue light leak on the right of the frame. And then let's layer it even further. Let's go for Light Leak 2 on the bottom left of the frame here as well. So this is just a way of kind of enhancing your image even further if you really want to go for that filmic look, using the Light and Legacy set and then incorporating some of the borders and also some of the light leaks. Now with that one, I'm just going to go into the masking panel, Light Leak 2. With these, you can grab them and move them around. So I can click down here and I can move this around and position it where I want. So I'm going to go down there and I'm going to bring the intensity down on that one. And I'm going to go to the other one and bring the intensity up a little bit. Yeah, and then I'm going to bring the overall exposure down just a tiny touch. And that looks great to me. So mixing together a few different bits from different sets. So I'll show you the side-by-side comparison. Courtney said the skin tones are preserved and look so nice. Thank you so much. Heather said skin tones on point with this. Vernon said, thanks Liam, I will push it to 90 amount. I like the gritty, scratchy and grainy look. Yeah, I love that. Love the tones of this image, especially with the pastel yellow. Awesome. So that one is by Diego. And in fact, so let's go back to the last image and let's just put one of the borders on this one as well. We'll go for something a little bit different. I'm going to go ahead and crop it in a little bit. Let's go around about, let's go about there. And I'm going to go for one of the minimal borders on this. So let's go for modern border 1 vertical. Just going to give us a nice arch. So this is one of the other borders available in that borders toolset, which is available at archipelagopresets.com. Again, one click, you get this really nice effect. So for this one, we have that nice arch effect across the image. So yeah, awesome. So let's move on to image number 3. This one by the Wild Love Club. It's got a nice indoor image for this one. I'm just going to go ahead and straighten it up just a little bit. There we go. And I think the exposure is looking good. White balance probably needs a little bit more warmth. Probably somewhere around about there. Maybe a tiny bit more magenta as well. About there. So for this, we're going to use Light and Legacy 3. So I'll go ahead and apply that. Really, really nice. So this is before and this is after. Love the way it's rendering the greens in the suit here. And of course in the plant. So before and after. It's keeping the sort of magenta pinky toning in the background and in the seat, which looks super nice. If I zoom into the subjects here, you can see before and after for skin tones. So creative profile, if we bring it to the left and bring it to the right, I quite like it down at the left for this one, just because we've got quite bright highlights on the subject's face here. This kind of just softens it up a little bit. I'm going to bring the exposure down a little bit here as well. Let's go somewhere around about there. Let's take a look at the tools. So I don't think I need black burn on this. I like the depth of the blacks in this image. Green foliage is fine. The saturation depth might be a good one actually. Go for a little bit more of like a color plus look where we get a little bit more intense colors. So let's go maybe somewhere around about there, about 75. So just injecting a little bit more color back into the image just because I feel like that's quite important in this image. We could go for pastel pink if we wanted to push those pinks even further. So let's go for that and just bring it down a little bit. Yeah, that looks great to me. So about 54 on the pastel pinks. Shadow depth is looking fine, so I don't need to use the subject or background shadows. Let's go ahead and take a look at diffusion. We'll see what that does with the image. So if I bring it down to 0, up to 200, so you can really see with this image, it's sort of softening all of the background of the image, but especially where the window is here, you can see how it just blooms those highlights. Just brings out that really nice glowy background, which I think looks lovely. So I'm going to bring that quite high, maybe about 150. Now we haven't got much of a sky in the background, but you can see that there is a little bit out the window. So if I go ahead and do sky recover, and we'll see if that helps the image at all. So this is before and after. So yeah, that's quite handy just to kind of balance out the exposure between the outdoors and the indoors. I won't go super high, but maybe about there, 140, just to kind of get a bit more detail back into the scene outside. I think for this, it would be nice to have some dust and scratches. So let's go for film scanner dust and scratches. I'm going to bring it down to, let's go for 90, like Vernon said. Go for 90. So you can see it a little bit more dramatically on this image because of the style of the photo. It's a little bit darker. You can see the dust and scratches there. I'm going to go for a medium format grain. I'm going to go for 400. And then let's put a border on this one as well. And what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to crop the image. I'm going to go for a 4x5 crop, and I'm going to use a 4x5 border. And that will help to deliver that large format 4x5 look. So let's go somewhere around there. So we have 4x5 border 1. Let's take a look at that. 4x5 border 2. And 4x5 border 3. There we go. I think 4x5 border 1 is probably the winner on this one. Get that really nice large format border effect around the edge of the image. So let's take a look. This is before and that's after, edited with Light and Legacy. Preset number 3. We've brought the profile all the way down to 0. We've used a little bit of sky recover. We've also used saturation depth to bring a little bit more saturation into the image. We use pastel pink exposure +1. We've done medium format grain at 400. We've done some dust and scratches, and then we've used one of the borders from the borders toolset, 4x5 border 1. There's the side-by-side comparison. Super, super nice. If I zoom in here so you can see the details on the subjects there. Really, really gorgeous. Love the way all of those colors are rendering. Yes, please, colors. Thanks, Anna. The pastel pink makes the pink on the walls pop. Really good tool to use. Such a cool shot. Pink's on point. Love that green suit. The grain is so good. The greens look fab. Lots of positives. So many amazing tools used just in one shot. Thank you, Gary. So before and after, that one by the Wild Love Club. All right, so next image, this one from Diego Baptista. So for this one, I wanted to go for something a little bit darker, moodier. Obviously, when we talk about Filmic, a lot of the time we kind of go for that light and airy Filmic look, but obviously you can go different ways with this. So you can kind of go for something a little bit moodier. So I went for this one as a little bit sort of kind of wild card, a little bit of a darker, moodier option. So I'm going to bring the exposure up just a little bit, maybe somewhere around about there. The white balance looks good, so let's go ahead and take a look at Light and Legacy 4. Going to give that a click. I love that. So straight away, that's definitely helping deliver that filmic look. So again, before and after, you can see how the dynamic range changes quite a bit. You get more detail back outside. So you can see here where the window is, and it lifts up the shadows in the scene. So now that I've got that, I'm going to bring the exposure up just a little bit more. And let's take a look at some of the tools. I'm going to start with the shadow tools. I'm going to do subject shadow plus and background shadow plus, and then I'm going to play around with those. So background, I want to brighten just a little bit. Subject shadow plus, I want to brighten just a little bit here as well. So I'm going to go for a moodier look, but I just want to make sure that everything's sort of balanced out nicely. I don't want super dark blacks because that's not very common with film. Typically, if you underexpose film, you get quite muddy shadows. You don't get deep dark shadows, you get muddy shadows. So by lifting up those shadows with those tools there, this is much more like what you would get if you had an underexposed film shot like this. If we did want to bring some more of the black depth in, we could obviously do that with the Blackburn. So you've got the stylistic control if you want to make it a little bit more kind of punchy, but I like how soft this looks. I'm going to keep that down at 0 because I really like it. Creative profile down at 0, up at 200. Again, for this, I would be tempted to bring it down to 0 just to kind of go for that softer look. Let's see if we want to use anything else on this one. Let's have a look at the pastel pink and pastel yellow. They're nice, but I don't think they're needed on this. I quite like the way it looks as it is. So I think maybe for this, I would just go for quite a heavy grain. So maybe like ISO 800 or ISO 3200, 35mm grain. So I'll go for 800, nice balance between the two. Again, I like the texture that that brings into the image and again, replicates the look. You often find that when you underexpose film, the grain becomes more apparent. So again, if you really want to replicate the look of film, that's one way to do it, is to kind of think about those things. Obviously, you don't have to. If you just want to kind of go for whatever look you want to go for, that's why the tools are designed the way they are. By having the base presets and then the separate tool set, you can use them however you want. If you want to go for a punchier look, something more contrasty and not necessarily realistic to film, but you want to have the tonality of film in terms of the colors, the hues, then you can still do that by using those tools in slightly different ways. So I think that looks super nice. Again, if I was going to go for a border on this, let's go for a 120, which is a medium format border. So we'll go for 120 border V and give that a click. So with this one, you get that nice 120 border. So you get the kind of edges around here, a little bit of data on the side. You also get a couple of light leaks that are built into this as well. So if I go in the masking panel here, you can see we've got light leak 1, which is this one at the top here. So I can increase the intensity of that. And then light leak 2, which is the cool tone one just below that. So I'm going to increase the intensity of that a little bit as well. Again, just go for something a little bit fun, a little bit more kind of creative. So this is before, and this is after. Image by Diego, edited with Light and Legacy 4. Creative profile all the way down. We've got the various different tools. So we've got the shadows plus in the background and on the subject. We've got some film grain in there as well. So the 35mm film grain 800, and then we put a border on from the borders tool set, which is the 120 border. So here's your side by side. Black and white would look great on this too. I absolutely agree. Let's just hover over the black and white really quickly just so we can see what a one click would look like with the black and white. Very, very nice. Ivy said, what an incredible shot to work with, and the color pop and shadow lift, so good. Thank you, Ivy. Could not agree more. Diego's work is absolutely incredible. Absolutely love Diego's images. 120 border is a great choice, Liam. Thank you, Vernon. Love this edit. That's from Sarah. Thank you. Definitely gives a proper film look. Thank you, Heather. Such a transformation in the edit. Lovely stuff. Thank you, everyone. Just a reminder, anyone that's tuned in late, welcome to the live stream. We're taking a look at Light and Legacy. This is our new Filmic preset collection. So this joins our 3 other brand new core presets that form the base presets for Archipelago. So we have Filmic, True Color, Moody, and Earthy. So this live stream is all about Light and Legacy, showcasing the set, all that good stuff. If you are tuning in live, do make sure you hit the subscribe button on the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and then jump in the chat, say hello, keep interacting, because we're going to be doing a giveaway for an Archipelago t-shirt. So if you're in the chat, you're in with a chance of winning an Archipelago t-shirt. Are these presets similar to 4x5? That's a question from Mark. Yeah, they are similar, because 4x5 is obviously a set that we released previously that was based on film as well. So it was based on large format film, 4x5 film. So yes, these are going to be similar because they have a filmic look. So if you enjoyed what 4x5 delivered, it was a fantastic set. I absolutely loved 4x5. If you love that set, you're going to love this set. So yeah, it's going to be similar in the fact that it's filmic, but it's also different. Like, none of the presets in this set cross over with 4x5. They all offer something very, very different from what that set gave, but still in that filmic family of presets. Podrick said, is this in the core set? Right, yeah, correct. This is part of our core lineup. So we've got 4 brand new preset collections that we launched a few weeks ago. So there's 4 different sets. We have Light and Truth, Light and Ochre, Light and Ember, and Light and Legacy. So this is one of those. You can find them all at archipelagopresets.com. You can see the whole collection, browse them, all that good stuff. So go and check that out. All right, so let's go back to this screen so we can see where we're at so far. We'll give a few seconds for these 2 images to catch up. I've got 4 more to edit, so I'll move on to those in a moment. Black and white looks fantastic. Thank you, Courtney. Skin tones are perfect with these presets. Thank you, Melia. Yeah, super nice. Really, really adore the skin tones that we get with this set. Melia said 4x5 is my favorite, so I know I will love these. Yeah, if you love 4x5, you will absolutely love these. You can also play around by mixing and matching as well. That's something I've showed in live streams before. You can apply a preset, go into the profile browser, and then change to a different profile. So it's actually something I've done before, switching to the 4x5 profile, for instance, on the Light and Legacy presets. You can do all that kind of good stuff. So it's not a case that this is just going to completely overtake, although it might, because you might adore these ones even more. But you can use both alongside each other, mix and match, use the tools with 4x5, all that good stuff. So all right, so image number 5. This one here from Heather, absolutely stunning. Love shoots at this time of day. We've got a blue hour shoot here. So really, really nice soft lighting. I'm gonna bring the exposure up a good amount. I'm gonna bring the temperature up a decent bit here as well, just because we've got that beachy shot. I wanna kind of have a little bit of warmth in the image. So that's looking good to me. So we'll go ahead and use Light and Legacy 5 for this one. So let's take a look at the 1-click with Light and Legacy 5. So super, super nice. I'm going to back the exposure off just a tiny little bit. Creative profile down at 0, up at 200. I really like that extra pop in the highlights and the slight cool toning that I'm getting from it up at 200. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let's do Sky Recover. That's going to give us a little bit more detail back in the sky, so you can see how that works. This is it down at 0 and up at 200. I'm probably gonna crank it quite high, actually. I think basically let's just go 200, because I think that looks really nice. Brings the detail back into the sky. We've got some really nice wispy clouds, a little bit of color there as well. Saturation depth, I think this image would benefit from that. I think just bringing a little bit of color back into the image. I'm going to go quite high, about 140, just so we get some more color back in the sky, in the sand, in the waves, and in the skin tones. Pastel pink and pastel yellow. I could sway either way. I think pastel pink on this looks really nice, just because there's a little hint of pink in the sky already. You can see how it's rendering the image quite differently when I increase that. So I'm going to go maybe default amount of 100. I think that looks really, really nice. It's just lifting things up, adding that nice pink overtone to the image as well. Background diffusion, I'm definitely going to use that on this. So bring this down to 0, up to 200, so you can really see how that affects the image. It softens things up in a really pleasing way. So if we take a look, if I zoom in here, take a look at the background over here, it just kind of blooms everything, softens it all up, and just kind of blends those tones together, and then therefore kind of pops the subject out of the image a little bit more. So we get that nice dreamy softness. Let's go for 35mm film grain on this, which is just slightly more coarse than the default grain. So this is before and after. That looks super, super nice. And let's go for a border on this one as well, but I'm going to go for something really clean, not a Filmic border, I don't think, on this. I think I'm going to go for minimal border H, which is just a very simple, clean white border around the edge of the image, just frames things off nicely. So this is the side by side. Really gorgeous transformation, very, very pastel in its kind of color toning, just the way it's bringing back the detail in the sky. If you look at the after versus the before, the sky exposure is very, very similar. But then if you look at the rest of the image, everything else has been lifted up to kind of balance it out. So it does a really, really nice job of rendering all of that, which obviously you would have to either manually adjust or you'd have to sacrifice one or the other. By having these tools just kind of balance everything out for you is really, really handy. Just love the way it's bringing a little bit more color in. And again, creative profile cranked up looks really nice. That extra little bit of cool toning is helping the water here and giving a little bit more contrast and punch to the image. So this is before and this is after. Lee said, hey Heather, gorgeous image. Yes, Heather's in the chat there. Thank you so much for this image, Heather. Absolutely stunning. Always love your work. It's always a pleasure to edit, and this is no different. Such a beautiful photo. Heather's Instagram handle is at the top there, at Heather K. Purdy. Definitely go and check out their work. Love the way that effect works on the sky. Thank you, Heather. Diego's here as well. I love this. Thank you, Diego. Thanks for joining. Courtney said incredible. Barbie would be proud of those pinks. Stunning shot. Thank you, Gary. Really amazing what it did with the tones and complemented the sky and water. Thank you, Heather. Okay, so next image, we have this one here from Valeria. I'm going to bring the exposure up just a little bit. White balance is looking good. So for this one, we're going to go ahead and use the black and white preset Light and Legacy 6. So I'm going to give that one a click. Really, really nice. Love the contrast level. Love the kind of definition and detail we get in the image. We have the Light and Legacy black and white creative profile, again set to 100 as default. If we bring it to the left, you can see it's quite a dramatic effect with this profile. So bringing it to the left will soften up the black and white. So you get something a little bit more like HP5, which tends to have really soft gradation in the gray toning. So you get this kind of really nice kind of fall off and kind of variation in the grays through the image, or you can increase the creative profile and go for something much punchier, much more reminiscent of something like Tri-X, which is a black and white that has quite a punchy contrast, very deep blacks and sharp bright whites. So again, versatility, you can kind of steer the black and white one way or the other. So again, down at 0, up at 200. Now for this, I quite like that extra punch, so I'm going to go quite high, maybe about 170. I'm going to bring the exposure up just a tiny touch, just to make sure that the skin tones are rendering nicely. So we can still use the tools here as well. Like I said, the pastel pink and pastel yellow are designed for color images. If you were to use them on a black and white image, you will just see a little bit of a render change. So if I go for pastel yellow, this is it before and after. So you can see it just kind of lifts those midtones. But you can still, of course, use them. I don't think it's needed on this. I'm going to turn that back off. But obviously, things like saturation, depth, and green foliage minus, all those are not going to be applicable on an image like this. But we can still use things like the shadow plus, sky recover, black burn, all that good stuff. So I'm going to go for some dust and scratches, I think, on this one, just because I think it looks really nice on the black and white image. Adds that extra bit of texture. And I'm going to back those all the way down just so that they're nice and subtle. I'm going to go for a sort of more subtle grain. I'm going to go for 120 medium format ISO 100. And let's go for a border on this as well. Let's do one of the grungy borders. Let's go for collodion border 4. Let's see how that looks. So nice and simple. You just get this sort of black border. It's a little bit more grungy. It's got these kind of lighter areas around the edge. can, of course, increase the intensity if you want to, but I'm going to leave that at the default amount of 100. So nice and simple, but just kind of brings everything together in quite a nice way. So this is the before and after. That's with Light and Legacy 6, which is the black and white in this preset collection. I've increased the creative profile to go for that punchier, contrasty, black and white look, tri-X type look. And then we've used a couple of tools there as well, just to kind of round everything out. I'll go ahead and zoom in on the subject. I love the way the kind of details pulled out in the eyes, in the hair. Super, super nice. And again, that creative profile does so much. If I bring this down to 0, it renders so differently. So you kind of have the option to have a couple of different personalities with your black and white and everything in between as well. Because it's an amount slider, you can increase or decrease it to exactly where you want. Wow, amazing black and white. Dig this edit. Really editorial black and white. Love this. Heart eyes. Thank you so much, everyone. All right, so that's the 6 presets in this collection, all edited. We've also put some borders on these as well, again, from that borders toolset available at archipelagopresets.com. Got a couple more photos here. So let's go ahead and get these edited. So I'm going to bring the exposure up on this one just a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit more warmth in the temperature. I'm going to go ahead and crop this one. Let's go for a 4:5 crop because I think that'll look quite nice on here. This image by Kate. Really nice photo. I love this kind of setup with the flowers on the chair. So let's have a look at all of the presets and decide. Light and Legacy 1's looking super nice. Again, I love the way it's rendering the greens. Much softer with Light and Legacy 2. That's also looking really good. 3's looking really good. I think this is going to be hard to choose. 4's looking lovely. 5 is looking good. And of course, black and white 6. I think the first 3 were calling to me more. 3 looks really nice. 2 and 1. Actually, I'm going to go for 1. Let's go for Light and Legacy 1 on this one. Creative profile down at 0, up at 200. So you can see, because we've got a little bit more green in this, just how it's rendering the greens. So again, if we zoom in here, so both the seat and also the greens in the bouquet there. If we go ahead and increase it, decrease it, so you can see it just shifts more towards that teal, cool toned greens, and also adds that extra punch of contrast into the image as well. I'm going to go for that all the way up at 200. Looking super nice. Let's have a look at Subject Shadows Plus. I might do a little bit of that just to kind of balance the foreground and the background out. What you can do is you can increase this and then bring your overall exposure back down and just find a balance then between the two. I think somewhere around there. I'm going to go for pastel yellow on this one because I think it's going to look lovely. I'm going to bring the exposure back down just to kind of get a nice little bit of warmth in there. Saturation depth. Let's see, yeah, let's go for a little bit of that on this as well. I think just to pull a little bit more color into the image. But what I might do, I want more color in the flowers and in the rugs here, but I don't want the greens to pop too much. So I'm going to use green foliage minus. I'm just going to back the greens off just a little bit. So maybe about there, just to kind of balance those out. So before and after, let's go for a border on this one as well. I'm going to go for one of the ribbon borders. This is from one of our quest sets. So we've got 3 of the ribbon borders here. So this is border 1. Give that a second to catch up. There we go. Super nice. Love that kind of distorted effect in the top right and the bottom right of the frame. Ribbon border 2. Again, it's absolute magic that this is all happening in the masking panel. All this has been drawn by hand in the masking panel as overlays. So yeah, it's pretty impressive what's happening with one single click of the preset. And that's ribbon border 3. I'm going to go for ribbon border 1 because I think that looks super nice. Again, I love that distorted effect in the top and bottom of the right side of the frame. So here's before and here's after, and there's the side-by-side comparison. Just a really nice transformation. Again, it's just lifted, it's a little bit softer looking. Definitely got that hue of a filmic image where those greens are shifted. We've added some warmth there as well with the yellow overtone. We've kind of lifted everything up, balanced everything out, softened everything up, and brought in that nice filmic look, and then finished it all off with a border from the Borders toolset. This one is the ribbon border 1. Anna said, I've been editing my new sessions with this set and love it so much. Yes, you have, Anna, and I have been loving seeing your work in our Facebook group. If you're not part of our Facebook group, go and join that. Archipelago Collective is what it's called. Go and join the group, share your images, be inspired by all the photographers that share theirs, like Anna. Anna's been posting some really, really gorgeous images with the set. I know originally Anna was waiting for this live stream to decide whether to get the set or not, and then just decided couldn't wait any longer, buy the set, and started editing with them and absolutely adoring them. So it's really nice to hear that, Anna. I'm sure you have no regrets about making that purchase. So beautiful, so lovely, beautiful floral shot. Great stuff. Okay, so before, after, let's move on to the next image. That was with Light and Legacy 1. So this is the last image, this one from Carissa. I'm going to go ahead and bring the temperature up a good amount here just to bring some of that golden light back into the image. I'm going to add a little bit more magenta maybe as well. Actually, no, back it off a tiny bit just to kind of keep the greens somewhere around about there. So let's take a look at the preset. So Light and Legacy 1, Light and Legacy 2, Light and Legacy 3, Light and Legacy 4, Light and Legacy 5, and Light and Legacy 6. What are we thinking? Jump in the chat and let me know. I'll go back through them again. So we've got Light and Legacy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 4, 5. Kate picked 5, and it's the last image was Kate's image, so I feel like 5 could be the winner. But then we've got 4 from Lucilla. Sarah said 3. Anna said 1 or 3. 4 or 5. 2, 4. I think 4's maybe winning then, based on that. So we've got Heather said 4. Lauren said 4. Lucilla said, let's go 4. I think that's the winner. So let's go for Light and Legacy 4. So a little bit more of a moodier look. You can see the greens are a little bit warmer with this particular preset. A little bit kind of more muted looking. So take a look at the creative profiles. This is it down at 0, up at 200. I definitely like it up at 200. Really changes the shape of the image, just adds a little bit more of that kind of difference between the light areas and the dark areas, so a little bit more punchy contrast, and also just shifts those greens to being a little bit cooler, so we kind of find a nice balance. So this is before and after with Light and Legacy 4. Let's see if we want to do any of the tools on this. I don't know if there's much that needs to be done. Let's take a look at the pastel pink and pastel yellow. They're both nice. I think pink could be a good one for this. Actually, yeah, it does look really nice. Just because we've got the pink flowers there, so just kind of bringing in some of that look. You could go for something really kind of dreamy, very, very soft and dreamy by cranking that all the way up. I actually think that looks really nice. So maybe go quite high with that, about 150, 149. Background diffusion, absolutely. We've already got a really soft background here, so I think just accentuating that even more will just help to deliver a really dreamy look to the image. Right, that's looking pretty lovely. I think we could go for a border on this one maybe as well. What are we thinking? We could go for one of the ribbon borders again. Yeah, let's go for ribbon border 2. And I said 3 goes on all my edits. Love that. Found a favorite already. Yeah, I love that. I think that with the ribbon border 2, it's just kind of added a nice little kind of enhancement to the image. Just kind of rounded it out really nicely with that kind of softness to the border. We could go ahead, why not? It's the last image. Let's go ahead and take a look at the XF Light Leaks set as well. One of the kind of options in this set is the XF Vintage Tone or X-Film Vintage Tone. So if you wanted to really kind of go for a vintage look, you could kind of push it even further by applying the vintage tone. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come up here, I'm going to go to grain off. So I'm going to turn the grain off in Light and Legacy. And then let's do the vintage tone. I'm just going to back it off a little bit. I'm just going to go for a little bit of vintage tone, which is going to soften the image up even more. Also adds a bit of grain in there as well, but I'm going to decide on the grain that I want at the end. And we'll put a little bit of a light leak in here as well. So let's have a look at light leak 7. version 1. Yeah, that's a good one. I'm going to go for that. I'm going to go into the masking panel, grab the brush, and then I can move that. I'm going to place it on this side down here. And then let's go for another one. Let's go for 4 maybe. Let's have a look. 4 is quite a subtle one. Yeah, I quite like that. Maybe 4-2, which I'll place on the left-hand side, I think. Yeah, let's go for 4-2. I'm just going to back the intensity of that off just to have a little bit of that coming in through the background. So we're going for that really, really soft look. I'm going to come all the way back up here, and I'm going to go for a more gritty look. Maybe let's go for ISO 3200 35mm grain, which is going to give us a really rich textured grain. So that's with that one. Let's go ahead and see the before and the after. So we've mixed together a few different sets there. We've got Light and Legacy, preset number 4. We've got the creative profile cranked all the way up to 200. We've used a couple of the tools in there, including the pastel pink, just to kind of give that nice whimsical softness and pink overtone to the image. We've applied a couple of light leaks. We've used the vintage film tone. Both of those are from the XF Light Leaks toolset. That's available to purchase from the Quest archive. And then I've also used one of the borders. This is the ribbon border from the Archipelago borders toolset. Again, that's available at archipelagopresets.com, just as a nice finishing touch to the image. So here's the side-by-side. Super, super nice transformation. I love the way it's brought that warmth in. What we're saying in the chat, so dreamy now. That's from Lucilla. Thank you so much. So dreamy, so pretty, amazing edit, love it. So pretty. As Lauren said there, for these gorgeous light leaks and the XF vintage tone, join Quest and shop the archive at archipelagoquest.com. For those that don't know, Archipelago Quest is our preset subscription. If you are a member of Quest, you get a new free set every single month that's included in your subscription. We also have other sets that you can purchase in the archive as well. So you can go and buy previously released sets and other tool sets that we release along the way. You can purchase those as a member as well, including the light leak set that you've seen here as well. Amazing edit, love it. So lovely, the light leaks fit so nice. Definitely will be purchasing this set. Thank you so much, Sarah. All right, so let's go back to this screen so we can see all those images. I'm going to select them all and press the N key. That's going to give me the survey view where I can see them all side by side. Such gorgeous images. Thank you to all those photographers whose images I've featured in this live stream. It's always a pleasure, as I say every single time, to edit these wonderful, wonderful photos. So they're all edited with Light and Legacy. That's the brand new Filmic preset collection from Archipelago Presets. You can shop that set right now, along with our other 3 core sets over at archipelagopresets.com, and our tool sets as well. We have the borders tool set, we have the wedding tool set, and the portrait tool set. So go and check those out if you haven't already. Now, in the live chat, we are going to be announcing a winner of a free Archipelago t-shirt. So stick around, that'll get announced in the chat in just a few moments. But I do want to say a big thank you to everyone that's tuned into the live stream and interacted as we've gone through this, and to anyone that's watching this back, big thank you. If you could give the video a like, that's really appreciative. And if you are watching this stream back, do jump in the comments and let me know what you thought to the live stream and to this Light and Legacy preset collection. And there we go, Lauren has announced the winner of the free Archipelago t-shirt, which is Courtney. You are getting your hands on one of those exclusive t-shirts. There's only a few of those out in the world. If you just drop us an email at the email address you see in the chat there, you will be getting one of those sent out to you, so you can be one of the few people in the world. I don't even have one of those t-shirts, so you are one of a very exclusive club of people that have those. So big congratulations to you, but thank you to everyone for tuning in. Come and join me next week. It's not going to be another light and core set. Next week, we're actually going to be doing the Quest set. So the next Quest set, I'll be doing a live stream on Tuesday next week for that next Quest set. And then the week after that, I'm going to do the last of the core sets, Light and Ember, which is our Moody preset collection. So make sure you hit subscribe on the channel, hit the notification button so you can hear when I'll be doing the next live stream, and come and join me for another one very, very soon.